I think we will wait for a few minutes. I will connect our translation to YouTube, and then we will start. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Today, we continue our educational block of the model of the African Union. And today I'm honored to introduce our speaker, who is the head of the Chancellery of the Embassy of Nigeria, former political officer of the Department of Peace and Security of the African Union Commission, Babatunde Fashik, and he's going to deliver a lecture about the African Union, and you can see the topic. It is a brief overview of the African Union. So I think we can start. All the participants will join us during the speech, and after that we will be ready to answer all questions. So Mr. Babatunde, I think you can start. We cannot hear you. You're mute.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, yes.
Okay, good afternoon, organizers, members of the African Club, which I am also aspiring to become one of you guys. To all delegates here, all the aspiring diplomats, all the aspiring ambassadors, greetings to all of you. My name is Babatunde Fashik. So thank you for the introduction. You have reduced the burden. So I am a counselor, a political from the Embassy of Nigeria here. And I have a few years of experience at the African Union Border Program, which is a division under the Peace and Security Department of the African Union in Addis Ababa, where I was a political affairs officer. So in the African Union Border Program, basically, we undo demarcations of borders, the cross-border cooperation issues, and capacity building for border officials. This is just for us to prevent crises across Africa using the platform. So that is not a discussion for today anyway. So today I'll be speaking to you briefly on the African Union. The African Union is such a big concept to discuss in 1 hour, but I'll just try my best to be able to highlight the fundamental areas that as students of diplomacy and politics, you would like to know. So we shall be discussing basically today about the structure of the African Union, the origin of the African Union, the functionalities of the African Union, and we shall be looking at the Agenda 2063 as well. So, but for me to be able to start properly, I think it is necessary for me to evaluate the participants, to know the interests which they have in Africa. I need to evaluate you a little bit to know how well you know Africa. As a member of the African Club, I want to try as much as possible. I need you to demonstrate your interest so that we can move quickly together on this presentation. So I will be starting with a little quiz. I want to find out how well you know Africa, and that is taking me to the next slide now. So once I put on this quiz, I will need you to drop your responses in the message center. I need people to be able to respond to some of these quiz. So let's go there now. Okay. How well do you know Africa? So I'll be looking for responses. I'll be looking for responses on how well you know Africa. And I want you to drop this response. I want to know which African countries you have visited and which African country you love to visit. I need you to start dropping the responses before you go ahead.
Okay, I will go first. As for me, I have never visited any African city, but I would like actually to visit not city, but country itself. I would like to go to South Africa.
Okay.
Also to Tanzania, Nigeria. I think they're all very beautiful, and maybe try to travel around Egypt because it's a very popular tourist place.
Okay, perfect. Interesting. So who else is talking to me now? I need some other person to respond to this. Okay, yes. Oh, we have a lot of people here. Interesting.
Yeah, I guess they're just shy a little bit.
Okay, so which of the countries have you visited and where would you like to visit, please?
Hello, my name is Konstantin Gorbov.
Okay.
I have never visited Africa,
Okay.
but I'd like to visit Tripoli. And because, well, I'm quite fond of Muammar Gaddafi and the things what he tried to do.
Okay.
And I think he could kind of solve one of our problems that we're discussing in our topics.
Oh, okay.
And for the next question, where is the African Union Commission located?
Yes.
It is located in Addis Ababa.
Okay.
If I pronounced it correctly.
Okay.
And I don't know how old is African Union because I'm new in this topic. But I'm trying to put my best to learn about it.
Thank you very much. You could start dropping some of these. I need them in messages. You can drop them as messages if you know how old is African Union and the full meaning of the OAU. I need to know, you need to be familiar with the longest serving leader in Africa and who is the current chair of African Union. And this question is, in what city? Look, in what country will you locate Abuja? What country will you locate Abuja?
It is in Nigeria. Oh, you accidentally turned off the demonstration, so we cannot see now your presentation.
You can't see now?
No.
Okay, just a minute. Okay. Okay, I think just a minute. I want to find this. Okay. Okay. Sorry, please. Recording. Can you see now?
No. Oh, yes, yes. Everything works now.
Everything works now. Okay, fine. So now, without wasting much time, let us go ahead with the presentation properly. So this presentation, as I told you before, we want to look at the transformation, the objectives, the leadership of the African Union, and also the Agenda 2063 and its impacts on Africa. Okay, so the African Union, which is consisting 55 member states, was launched in 2002 from the former OAU. The body used to be known as Organization of African Unity. So the emergence of the African Union, we used to have the OAU in the same Addis Ababa. And in the year 2002, it transformed from the OAU to the African Union. So the African Union, which was built on the achievements of the OAU, is to address the challenges of the continent, the political challenges, economic challenges, including poverty, underdevelopment, and the issue of conflicts across Africa. Basically, the objectives of the African Union is to promote solidarity and unity among the member states of the African Union. Another key objective is the defense of sovereignty and the territorial integrity, and to promote independence of all member states of the African Union. Another fundamental objectives of the African Union is to encourage international cooperation. We take into due account of the Charter of the United Nations, and also to promote peace, as we all know that the issue of peace and security is fundamental, and the issue of peace and security is such a crucial one in Africa now. So the African Union is committed to the stability that is needed in Africa. And also the African Union is committed to the issues of promoting democratic tenets and principles across Africa. So African Union is always determined to make sure that the issue of democracy, the issues of good governance, the issues of electoral reforms are their priorities. That is why we have a Department of Political Peace and Security in the African Union. In the course of this presentation, we shall come down to this by discussing all the departments of the African Union. Now, as I mentioned to you, at the moment, African Union is made up of 55 countries, 55 member states, from the north of Africa to the southern Africa, to the east and the west of Africa. At the moment, there are 55 member states of the African Union. So there are 55 members. Take note of this. So it is important to also inform you that there are organs of the African Union. This organ is like a body that makes the entire union to be what it is today. The most important and the highest body of the African Union is the Assembly. The Assembly is known as the highest decision-making body of the African Union, and it comprises of member states, head of states of these member countries. So in essence, what I'm trying to say here is that all the member states, head of states, all the countries in Africa, head of states, are members of the Assembly of the African Union. So let us look at the functions of the Assembly. So this Assembly assists in formulation of policies. They assist in establishing the priorities and adopt the annual programs of the African Union. They also monitor the implementation of policies and decisions of the African Union. The Assembly of the African Union also elects the chairperson and deputy chairperson of the African Union Commission. And they also assist in the appointment of commissioners and determine their functions and the tenure of their offices. The Assembly of African Union assists with the adoption of the AU budget. This assembly make it a priority to also approve the structures, the functions, and the regulations of the commissions. And importantly, which is not mentioned in this slide, is that on the issues of peace and security across Africa, the Assembly delegates the power to ensure that there is peace and security to the Peace and Security Council of the African Union. So most decisions are based on their decision, which is usually from 2/3. What I'm saying is that whatever decision of the Assembly is a function of 2/3 majority of the Assembly. So if there is any 2/3, like if we have 2 of over 3% is able to form a decision, then it becomes adopted by the assemblies of the head of states. So before moving forward, I wouldn't want to bore you. I want to find out if there's anything you would like to know so we can move ahead. Do you have any questions so far, please? So the floor is open.
I would like to ask you a question.
Okay.
If there are any conflicts between members, how does it solve in the Assembly or in the African Union?
Okay, thank you. Do we still have another question, please? Okay, back to your issues. In the African Union, the issue of conflicts cannot be avoided. There are a lot of cases of conflicts in the African Union, particularly between and among member states. In the African Union, there are several departments that is responsible for conflict prevention and also peace mediation. So that is why we have the Peace and Security Department of the African Union. And we also have the PSC, Peace and Security Council. So most of the time, issues of peace and security, issues of conflict are directed to the appropriate sections, appropriate division, appropriate departments that is responsible for conflict prevention and peace negotiations in the African Union Commission. Thank you. Do we have any other questions before we continue, please?
I think everything is pretty clear.
Okay.
If questions arise, I think participants will ask them later, or they can write them in the chat so we can see them.
Oh, okay, that's fine. So I also want to mention to you that the Assembly of the Head of States are constitutionally allowed to meet at least once a year. At least this head of state, the presidents of different countries meet once a year. And most of the time now, they meet twice a year. They meet during the ordinary session and the extraordinary sessions. And at any time they decide to meet, they could also gather together wherever they intend to gather, probably in Ethiopia or elsewhere, to discuss issues of the African Union. So now I want to talk to you about the Executive Council. There's an Executive Council of the African Union. The Council, they formulate policies, they make decisions for member states, and they are answerable only to the Assembly This executive body is composed of the foreign ministers. So ministers of foreign affairs of member states are the members of the Executive Council of the African Union. So during their meetings and engagements, they vote and make decisions on consensus. And also their voting is based on simple majority, which means two-thirds is supposed to form a quorum of the Executive Council whenever they meet to decide on a crucial issue. So they meet, and they can also meet at extraordinary session at the request of the chairperson of the African Union. That is it about the second organ of the African Union, which is important for all of us to know, the Executive Council. The third one is the Permanent Representative Council. This council is committee, rather, the Permanent Representative Committee. The committee is made up of ambassadors from member states, and they meet regularly to prepare for meetings of the Assembly and the Executive Council. So once again, we call them the PRC in the African Union, Permanent Representative Committee. So they conduct the day-to-day business of the African Union on behalf of the Executive Council and the Assembly. Let me describe it to you in a way that you understand. There is a Permanent Representative Committee made up of all the ambassadors of member states that are in Ethiopia. So every time they try to meet, they are called the Permanent Representative Committee, and they make decisions on behalf of executive councils, which will now be passed across to the Assembly of the African Union. So this body is also known as an advisory body. They advise the executive councils on crucial decisions that affect member states. So that is it about the permanent representative. Now, another crucial organ is the Peace and Security Council. So the Peace and Security Council of the African Union concentrates on the issue of resolution of conflict and crisis across Africa. The Peace and Security Council of the African Union are there as a standing committee representing the Assembly in terms of conflict prevention. Basically, their function is to avoid conflicts across board. And this is the first point of contact whenever there is conflict. This goes down to the question, the first questions that came to me, that if there is a conflict, where do we resolve it? Most especially if it is a question of issues of peace and security, if it is an issue of violence, if it's an issue of matters that is affecting member states. So this Peace and Security Council provide early warnings, and they also facilitate the peace process. So you need to also know that there is another organ which is called the Pan-African Parliament. So the Pan-African Parliament is also an organ that is set up to ensure the full participation of African people in governance, development, and economic integration of the continent. So I would like to explain this better to you because most people don't understand what they do. There is a body which is called the Pan-African Parliament. So it's like a legislative body. So they ensure that African governance is ensured, full participation of African people in the governance, development, and economic integration of the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, as we are about to round up, we have two more organs in the African Union, which we call ECOSOC and the Court of Justice. So the ECOSOC is to assist and they provide opportunity for African civil society organizations. These civil society organizations are like non-governmental organizations, so play active role in contributing to the AU principles, policies, and the program. So this is a fundamental organ. And finally, the last organ is the Africa Court of Justice. So the Court of Justice basically it is being called the Court of Justice and Human Rights. The Court of Justice and Human Rights. This Court of Justice is located in Arusha, Tanzania, it is the court that assists. You can see the picture of the court here, the African Court. So the court is an international and regional court of the African Union. This court basically is composed of 11 judges. These 11 judges are nominated by the member states of the African Union, and they are elected by the Assembly of the Head of States. So each of the judge is expected to serve a period of 6 years term once. So a judge in the court is expected to serve for a 6 years tenure of office just once. The court is in Arusha, Tanzania. Now, the most interesting one, which most people knew about, is the African Union Commission. So here is the African Union Commission. The African Union Commission is the main secretariat that handles the day-to-day administration, the day-to-day runnings of the African Union. The Commission, as it is known as the Secretariat, it represents the Union and it defends the interests and it assists in preparing strategic plans and studies for the consideration of the Executive Council. So the African Union Commission, as we have seen in this picture, is located in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. So here is the Secretariat. So the Secretariat is made up of a chairperson, followed by a deputy chairperson, and 8 commissioners with the staff members of the African Union. So if I may repeat myself for you to understand, there's an African Union Secretariat in Addis Ababa that is made up of a chairperson and the deputy chairperson and commissioners. There are 8 commissioners in numbers, and we have the staff of the African Union Commission. So the staff members are also categorized. It's not in this slide, but I will explain to you. In the staff configuration of the African Union, you have the regular staff of the African Union, you have the contract staff of the African Union, and there are also seconded staff of the African Union. What I mean by seconded staff are the staff of member states that are working temporarily at the African Union for a period of time. For instance, Egypt may decide to send their staff to the African Union Commission for 1 or 2 years, not as a full staff of the African Union, but as a seconded staff of the African Union. For instance, Ghana may decide to say, okay, we want to assist the African Union with our staff members that are knowledgeable in the area of peace and security that are knowledgeable in the area of power or infrastructure. So they will now inform the African Union that we are sending you our staff to assist you with capacity, and those guys are called the seconded staff. So I was a seconded staff by the Nigerian government to the African Union border program between the year 2018 and 2020. So I was in the African Union for 2 years, and I was able to assist the department with the support of my country, Nigeria. So that is the configuration of staff members of the African Union. So we have so many departments of the African Union, and as you can see them, about 8 of them here, each of them with a commissioner. We have the Department of Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy, and Sustainable Environment. Basically, this department handles the area of making sure that there is food security across Africa, making sure that the environment is safe for us to live. And this department is such a very important one and has its own commissioner. The second one, economic development, tourism, trade. This department ensures that they assist member countries in improving their tourism sector, in improving their trade relations, in improving their mining industry, among others. This is a separate department also in the African Union. There is another Department of Education, Science, Technology, and Innovation. So this department assists a lot of African students in terms of scholarship. This department assists in the area of research and development, in the area of improving technology and innovation. Then the Department of Infrastructure and Energy, and the department where I had worked before, Political Affairs, Peace and Security. So the Political Affairs, Peace and Security seems to be a very important department in Africa as we speak, because the issues of peace and security, the issues of peace, particularly for the people of Africa, is very important at this point in time. So this department was merged recently together with political affairs. So they used to operate separately before now. Before we have peace and security department and we have political affairs department. But in about 2 years ago, the African Union Commission merged these departments together. And under this department, you have early warning department, you have post-reconstruction department, you have where you have African Union border programs, and a whole lot of sections dealing with different aspects that involves the issues of peace and security across Africa. Next to that is the health, humanitarian, and social development. This department has one very unique unit, which is the CDC. The issues of medicals, the issues of health are being handled by this department. Humanitarian affairs is being handled by this department. And also there's a department in charge of women, gender, and the youth. And finally, there's a department in charge of civil society and diaspora. So before we move on to the next slide, I would want to engage my participants. If there's anything you want to ask, then we could quickly move on to the next slide. Okay. Okay, I have questions here. Like, Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Kirill. I'd like to find out about enacting legislation. So the African Union Commission helps the Executive Council prepare policies, and then the Assembly enacts it, don't they?
Exactly. Exactly. Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect. Could you please explain why the Court of Justice is located in Arusha? There are probably some historical reasons for this location. Okay. Similarly, could you explain? Oh, well, these questions are quite interesting and quite debatable. For me, I may not be able to give you the response why the African Union Commission is located in Addis Ababa. However, I need to let you know that African Union, Addis Ababa is a capital of Ethiopia, and Ethiopia is a member state. Definitely, the African Union will be in one of the member states. That is one. And secondly, there are so many departments of the African Union that are now spread across many countries now. So you have APRM in South Africa, you have AFCT, the Free Trade Organization now in Accra, Ghana. You have even a department in Nigeria in terms of area of science and technology. So all the departments of the African Union are not concentrated only in Addis Ababa. No, we have a lot of them everywhere. But for the historical reasons, I think it will be a topic of research for another day why it is in Addis Ababa. Thank you very much. Do we have any other question, please? Okay, so since we don't have any questions for now, I want us to move quickly to look at the Agenda 2063. Agenda 2063. Sorry. Yes. So I don't know if you all have been hearing about Agenda 2063. Agenda 2063 is a 50 years roadmap of strategy for developing Africa. That is the summary of it. Agenda 2063 is a strategic blueprint. It's a kind of master print for transforming the continent in 50 years. This Agenda 2063 started in the year 2013. So if you combine or if you add 50 plus 2013, it will give you Agenda 2063. So this is the aspiration, the objectives that the African Union is set to achieve in a period of over 50 years. So there is a whole lot of agenda. There is a whole lot of plans which have started being implemented. There is a whole lot of flagship projects for Agenda 2063. So basically, Agenda 2016 was adopted by the Assembly of the African Union in the year 2013, and it is aimed at transforming Africa into a prosperous, integrated, and peaceful continent. As you can see that the agenda has a whole lot of flagship programs. I will mention some of these flagship programs, which they are about 13 in number. I will mention some of them to you. One of them is Africa Continental Free Trade Area. This is to ensure that trade is being accelerated. The use of trade could move more efficiently. The use of trade as engine of growth and sustainable development across Africa. And the intention to allow for free trade across the borders of Africa. This is the priority of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. So the second one, which is very important, is the African Union passport. It has not actually been implemented, but for the staff of the African Union, it is now in force. When I was at the African Union, I have an African Union passport, and I could use this passport to travel to anywhere within Africa. So this passport was recognized, and this passport will remove the restrictions of it will remove the restrictions of Africa to travel to anywhere within Africa. It will remove the restrictions of Africa to work and to live within the continent. You know, the initiative is aimed at transforming the African laws, which remain generally restrictive on movement of people, despite political commitment to bring down borders. So, in summary, what is as African passports and free movement of people is set to achieve is that you could conveniently travel like people travel within the European Union with the Schengen visa. So that is the intention of the passport. It will allow free movement of people within the continent. So the next one is actually for Africa continent to have a single Africa air transport market. For single Africa air transport market, it will allow for intra-regional connectivity between the capitals, cities of Africa. This policy will allow convenient flight movement from one city in Africa to the other without any restriction. So this is going to allow for a lot of competition. This is going to allow for a lot of consumer protection. This is going to allow for a lot of passengers, choices to fly from one capital to the other without having to transit from one place to the other before you get to your final destination. For now, travel within Africa is a bit difficult because of the connection problem. But by the time this agenda is on board, it will make it very easy to travel from one city to another with this single Africa air transport market. And again, one of these agenda is integrated high-speed train network. The high-speed train network is to allow for connectivity within Africa with the use of train and the train lines. So Africa model, which is aspiring that in the next 50 years, there will be a kind of connection. There will be a kind of easy movement by people of Africa from one place to the other with the use of an high-speed train network. So basically, it is aimed to connect Africa capitals, the commercial centers with high-speed train, facilitating movement of goods and people with the use of train. Also, there's an agenda which is very important here, is the issues of silencing the guns by year 2020. It is the hope and aspiration of this agenda that Africa needs to work towards ending of crisis, ending of civil conflicts, gender-based violence, conflict, preventing genocide, among others. So in addition, in the area that it is monitored through establishment of African Human Security Index. So that is the intention of Agenda 2063. And the last but not the least here is African Virtual and E-University. African Virtual and E-University is trying to promote the use of modern technology to facilitate learning, the use of ICT-based programs to increase access, particularly to tertiary education and continuing education in Africa, by reaching large number of students and professionals. So this is to promote what is called distance learning across Africa. So you could be in Malawi and be taking a course in Kampala. You could be in Addis Ababa and could be having an online class in Lagos. You could be somewhere around Congo and be learning from Tunisia. So that is another intention and a flagship agenda of the Agenda 2063. Sorry. So, ladies and gentlemen, there are objectives of the Agenda 2016, which I have highlighted here. So, one of them is to promote sustainable economic growth and development in Africa. Secondly, to enhance Africa infrastructure, including transport, energy, and the ICT of African member states. Also, it is to assist in capacity in science, technology, and innovation to drive economic growth. And also, it is to assist in the enhancing quality and relevance of education and skill development in Africa to meet the needs of the rapidly changing world. And finally, a fundamental objective of the Agenda 2063 is to promote the issues of peace and security in Africa, and by addressing the root cause of conflict. Because if we do not know the root cause of conflict, we cannot address the conflict on its own. We should know the causes of violence. We should be able to trace the causes of unrest across Africa. And the objective of the agenda here is that it is to address the root cause of conflict, particularly with conflict prevention mechanisms. Conflict prevention and early warnings mechanisms will assist African country member states to achieve this objective. So the next one is the challenges of the Agenda 2063. So there are some challenges that have been identified, and the continent is working towards eliminating these challenges. So some of these challenges are the issues of funding. The implementation of the Agenda 2063 requires significant funding from both domestic and external sources, which may be challenging given the limited resources available. I believe that is self-explanatory. Then the issues of institutional capacity too. Institutional capacity could be lacking, but I believe this kind of challenge could be easily sorted out. So implementing Agenda 2016 requires strong institutions and effective coordinations among African countries, which will be hindered by weak institutional capacity and limited resources. And the last one is the political will. The African leaders, are they ready? Are they ready for the Agenda 2063? Are they ready to put in their political will to make sure it is achieved? That is a fundamental question as well. So, and it has become a challenge, because until all the African leaders key into the project, until all the African leaders key into this dream of transforming Africa in 50 years, then it will only become a mirage. So it has become a challenge which we are hoping that hopefully it would be solved. So finally, the Agenda 2016 provides a comprehensive vision for Africa transformation, over the next 50 years, covering a wide range of issues critical to Africa development. Its successful implementation requires strong institutional capacity, political will, and significant investment. I can tell you that if we have the political will, we have the funding, and we have the institutional capacity, that Agenda 2063 will transform Africa significantly. Because most of the concerns, most of the challenges that is being faced right now in Africa has been taken care of in the Agenda 2063. So by achieving this objective of Agenda 2063, Africa will be transformed into a prosperous, peaceful, and globally influential continent. Just a minute. So now I want to move ahead to the next slide, which is so I hope you can see the next slide, please.
Yes.
Okay. So the general contributions of the African Union to Africa. But before presenting on the general contributions of the African Union, I see that there are so many other participants here, and I will want us to interact a little. Do we have any participant from Africa, please?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Can you kindly introduce yourself? Let's know you.
Okay, so I'm Francis, and I'm from Ghana.
Okay. Thank you. Who else do we have from Africa? So we have Ghana on board. So I'm not the only African on board. Interesting.
Me
Yeah,
too.
sure.
My name is Grace. I'm from Côte d'Ivoire.
Côte d'Ivoire, bonjour, ça va?
Oui, ça va très bien, merci.
Yeah, so I'm sorry I'm not able to speak French. My first posting was in Côte d'Ivoire.
Okay.
But it was very short.
Mhm.
So I did not have enough time to learn to parler français.
It's okay. It's okay.
Welcome on board.
You're welcome.
So we have Côte d'Ivoire, okay, and we have Ghana on board, and I'm Nigeria. So it makes me know that this is a real African group, because if we have an African group and we don't have Africans on board, we are not making justice to that. So we have 2 Africans on board, right?
I'm also from Africa and Nigeria specifically.
Who is speaking, please?
My name is Blessing. Hello.
Okay, Blessing from Nigeria.
Yes.
So I also have a Nigerian on board. Okay, you are welcome. So we have 3 Africans. So, well, basically, I think the African Club is a very good initiative. And for me, I really thank you guys for putting this club together. And I'll be willing, if you are able, to accommodate me to be a member of your club, so that we are able to put heads together, discuss issues that are germane and issues that would contribute to learning and development, particularly of the issues of Africa. So I want to now talk about the general contributions of African Union to Africa. So basically, I have been talking about the issues of the peace and security. There is APSA. It's an architecture, security architecture in the African Union. So this architecture is designed to confront all the issues. Most especially, this architecture looks out for wherever there is conflict within Africa and they try to resolve the conflict, particularly with the issues of early warning. Early warning is such a very sensitive and a critical, very important division of the African Union. So this division provides warnings. They foresee, they forecast warnings, and they quickly alert African members in such a way that it will not transcend and enter into a situation of conflict and violence. So also, they assist particularly in election monitoring. Whenever there's supposed to be an election within Africa, within any country in Africa, the peace and security team are always sending electoral observers to monitor elections, to monitor issues, and to report back. So the peace and security is such a sensitive and a very important department that if the issue of peace and security is not discussed or addressed, I think every other thing is just secondary, honestly. So it is the most important department now in the African Union, and it has contributed significantly. It has contributed significantly, though they still have a lot more to do as a result of the issues of conflict expansions within Africa. A few days ago, we all had what happened in Sudan. So basically, the AU are promoting peace and has made significant contribution to the issues of peace and security in the continent through the Africa Peace and Security Architecture, the Peace Security Council, and the standby force. The standby force is it's like a military force that is being deployed whenever there is need for deployment of military men to restore peace and order in any country. So these mechanisms have been instrumental in resolving conflict and preventing the escalation of violence in a number of African countries. Then the second one is advancing economic development. So as I told you earlier that recently the African Union, I think it was in 2019, launched the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which is known as the AFCFTA. And now this organization is in Ghana. This is to promote trade and investment. This is to promote easy movement and easy facilitation of goods and services across Africa. This is to also strengthen regional integration and enhance economic cooperation among the African countries. So the flagship initiative, we're talking about the flagship programs of the Agenda 2016. This one has been achieved as far as I'm concerned. This issue of Africa Continental Free Trade Area. It was launched in 2019 and is expected to create a single market for goods and services, promote intra-Africa trade, and enhance economic growth and development in Africa. So again, I need to mention to you that the AFCFTA is the world's largest free trade area, which is bringing together 55 countries of the African Union and the 8 regional economic bodies, because there are about 8 RECs, SADC, ECOWAS, some of these RECs, bringing all of them together. And the mandate of the AFCFTA is to create a single continental market of about 1.3 billion people in Africa. So as a mandate of the AFCFTA is to eliminate trade barriers and to boost intra-Africa trade in particular. So that is it about that. It has a member state endorsement and secretariat in Accra, and the secretary is Wamkelen by name. He's a young, astute professional who is ready to transform the organization. So the next is just a minute. Okay. So the next contribution is promoting good governance and human rights. So promotion of good governance and human rights. So African Union has assisted in the promotion of democratic tenets, democratic principles, good governance, the promotion of the rule of law, the promotion of human rights, and also, as we mentioned to you, like the court in Arusha, Tanzania, this is an effort to promote the human rights of the people of Africa. So the AU has played a crucial and critical role in promoting free and fair elections in a number of African countries, including Kenya, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, and some other countries where elections were held. So even recently in Nigeria, the AU observers were there during the presidential elections that was held in February. So the AU body, in a bid to make sure that democracy is institutionalized in most of the countries, they are always sending their representative to observe elections. And also, the African Union has been able to assist in the strengthening of regional integration. When I was in the African Union, at the African Union Border Program, basically what we do is to promote border cooperations, border governance, and also to allow for cross-border cooperation between and among member states. So that department, which is known as the African Union Border Program, is to strengthen the structural conflict prevention mechanisms. So that department is to educate, is to train border officials of member states, border practitioners. So, and that department is to assist in the demarcation of African borders, because we have a whole lot of porous borders in Africa. So the department is set up to look at the borders, to identify the border lines, to demarcate the borders, to assist the border officials in cross-border cooperations, and also to assist in border conflict resolutions. So this, in a way, is bringing a kind of integration among member countries by training their border officials together. Most of the time, we have border officials from Kenya. They come together with border officials in Tanzania. They invite border officials from Namibia and border officials from Cameroon to sit down and discuss how we can resolve the issues of border problems. So that is an area where African Union has been able to achieve a lot of integrations among member states. And finally, I have here that the African Union is enhancing Africa's voice in the global community. Now, in the global community, African voice is being heard. In the global community, what do I mean by global community? We have the United Nations, which Africa member countries are also part of. We have the World Trade Organization, which the Director General is a Nigerian, Dr. Ugozi Ekunji-Uwela. We have other international organizations that Africa are now not only member, but they are also part of the leadership of the organization. So African Union play a significant role when it comes to assisting their member states, assisting their people to get positions in international organizations. They advance courses for them, they put ahead their CV, they put ahead their resume, they campaign for them, and they advance their voices across Africa. I mean, internationally. So the African Union is always assisting member states and citizens of Africa in advancing their voices globally. So the AU has played an important role in enhancing African voices in the global community through its various initiatives and programs. The AU has worked to promote African interests and perspectives on a wide range of global issues, including trade, climate change, peace and security. The African Union has also been working to enhance African participation in international institutions and forums, such as the UN, the World Trade Organization, and the International Criminal Court. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we are about to come to the end of this presentation, I want to say that the African Union has made significant contributions. African Union has made a lot of progress in the area of good governance in Africa, in the area of human rights, in the area of peace advancement, in the area of global engagements, and the African Union efforts have been critical in advancing African development and promoting interest on the global stage. So there's still a lot of more job to be done. You will agree with me that there's a lot of more work to be done in Africa. You will agree with me that the African Union still has so many challenges because there are still crises here and there. There are still infrastructural gap here and there. There are still some concerns that we should have advanced from the current stage now. But I want to tell you that the Union is doing so much, and the AU continued commitment and efforts are essential in achieving African vision for a prosperous, peaceful, and integrated continent. So at this junction, I want to thank you all for your rapt attention. I also want to thank you for being part of this program. I will look forward to more engagements. And if you think of any other question after this presentation, I have my email address, which I will still show on the slide. You could send an email and I'll be glad to assist. And if there are not questions that I could respond to, I could forward to some of my colleagues who are still staff and professionals in the African Union system as we speak. So I want to thank the organizers too, and I thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much for delivering such a fruitful speech. I think all the participants and me as well did enjoy it. I found out a lot of new information, and I think it was well structured, which would definitely help our participants to take part in the model. I think if anyone has any questions, you may ask them. And if no, we can just say goodbye to each other, thanks each other, and move on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think there are no questions.
So I
think there are no questions, which means everyone understood the presentation. And if at all you think of something else that you want to ask, please feel free to to let me know. Oh, okay, nobody has even seen my face. So this is me. You feel free to let me know. You can send me an email and I'll be glad to respond to you.
That's great. So thank you once again on the behalf of Mgimo African Club and on the behalf of all our participants. Thank you very much for this speech and this lecture. And a little organizational detail for our participants. Our next lecture will be on the 20th of April, also at 4 p.m. We will share the link with you. And for now, I can say that our meeting has finally come to an end. So thank you once again all for joining. It was really well structured and well and just very perfect meeting.
Thank you.